And welcome back to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Today, we're going to talk about restaurants a little bit, rising prices across the state. We're also going to touch base on the Colin Powell passing. And we're eventually going to get to the Joe Biden highway signage that was defaced over the weekend. And then last but not least, we are going to talk about Hooter's new uniforms. I didn't inform you about this morning, but I figured that was, of all the things that you could run with, I thought that would be one that you would.
Go. Yeah, I saw it going across the bottom. That's good.
I thought you could improvise on that pretty easily. But before we get to all of that.
Best lemonade in the world, buddy.
Yeah. Before we get to all of that, the most important question of every day, and this is probably the least we had ever talked over a weekend. So I have no clue.
Not ever, but
since we've started this, it probably is.
Probably.
So I have no idea what the answer to this question is going to. Usually I have like an inkling, like I kind of know. How are you feeling today?
Well, I mean, it's Monday, so that means the Cowboys won yesterday because, there they are.
Gosh.
If it's a Monday, that means they won yesterday. So I'm good. Okay. This is one of those, how people always say, well, if you would have bet on,
Sure.
And I'm not talking about investing, like if you'd have been in Bitcoin or if you'd have been in Apple or any of those. So here, as my daughter now goes to Pitt.
Okay.
If you would have bet preseason that on October, what is Saturday, the 24th, 3rd?
Okay.
On October 23rd, when Pitt plays Clemson, that in both polls, Pitt would be ranked higher than Clemson, how much money would you have made?
Quite a bit.
Because that's how it is.
Okay.
If she would have bought season football tickets,
and
she's like, well, Dad, why would I buy? I don't know. I'm not going to go to any games. I said, because you could have sold the Clemson ticket.
Yes.
But now, like at first, once Clemson wasn't that good, I was like, well, it's not going to be worth that much. But now Pitt's ranked, and Pitt, they believe.
Right.
They could win the ACC. At least they think.
Yeah. They're like Ted Lasso. They believe.
They are just like Ted Lasso.
Have you ever seen Ted Lasso?
Who would have thought? No, you told me to watch it. I haven't watched it.
You need to watch it.
I'll tell you what I watched this weekend. I did not watch Chappelle. I was going to, but I didn't. I will watch Chappelle soon. I watched The Blair Witch Project again.
Okay.
That is a brilliant, brilliant movie.
Okay.
You didn't like it?
I just didn't. I thought it was scary. I didn't really get it. I thought they lacked a real ending, like a true ending to it. That and Paranormal Activity, the Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity, for whatever reason this year are getting like a ton of bounce back. Like people, I guess it's just like streaming services just have them now. And so you have this whole generation of younger people that never really got to dive into Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity. Those are the two that keep coming up on my feed over and over again.
You want to hear my philosophy?
Go ahead.
Which I did not know that, by the way. And I've never seen Paranormal Activity.
Okay.
Is it good?
It is scary.
Okay.
This is real quick because I do want to hear what your thoughts on it. I struggle with the real world, almost like the cameras, because very rarely do those movies have a real ending. They're scary as all get out. They are, while you're in the movie, you are glued to it. However, the endings are just never satisfying, ever.
Okay. I think back in the day, when Blair Witch came out and you were like 2.
Yeah.
The one of the big complaints of people was I got a headache with the bouncing.
Sure.
Society is now used to bad camera work. Bad camera work is everywhere and it doesn't bother anyone anymore.
Right.
So when I watched it again, the first time I saw it in a theater because it was all the rave and all the rage, not all the rave. And it didn't really bother me that much, but I had a friend who's like, I couldn't take it.
Yeah.
I watched it again. Now it's just on my TV. I was watching the DVD, but it didn't bother me at all. And I think society is now used to that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now half the things you watch, whether it's TikTok or a Facebook video,
it's homemade.
Nothing is stabilized anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So I 100% agree with that. We'll dive into movies here at the end, and we'll dive back into football a little bit at the end too. One of the top stories from today, Penn Live had an article on it, and then there was a national story about it as well, about restaurants and the rising prices. We have some statistics here that I wanted to talk about, but more than 18 months into the pandemic, after surviving government mandates and labor shortages, the restaurant industry is facing another hurdle: higher food prices. As a result, owners are raising prices, eliminating some menu items, and finding alternative products. Initial thoughts?
Well, I think it goes all the way back to deliveries, what's available, what you can get.
Yeah.
Because people have fewer truck drivers, and then they can't get trucks, so they have to pay truck drivers more. So the whole interweb of the economic system, and it all comes out to the consumer.
I first noticed it with fast food. I had told you before about going up, and they have actually the numbers here on fast food and how much each chain has raised. Wow.
It's not rose.
What should I go with?
Each chain has risen.
And it has the percentage of what they've risen. Taco Bell, McDonald's, like all of them. I noticed it really for the first time like 2 weekends ago, because I hadn't had wings in a couple of almost a month or two. And I went to get wings, and it was like $15 for a dozen. And I was kind of like, oh, wow.
And now your watermelon salads looked a little better.
They definitely look a little better. So that was the first time that I had noticed it. According to the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association, 92% of operators in the state of Pennsylvania have said that their total food costs are higher than they were prior to the coronavirus pandemic. About 90% of those operators have said that their profit margins are down since the start of COVID-19 as a result of the cost of food going up. So the question is really going to become, and I've been behind the scenes in this industry, you have been behind the scenes in this industry. The question that's going to come is how much can those price margins suffer before the prices reflect onto the menu itself?
And that goes into, they're talking about, raising the minimum wage, and you can't get employees, so they have to pay employees more, but the margins are more crunched. And there are just not ways when you're dealing with things in the restaurant industry like lettuce and tomatoes, and there are things that you can keep. Onions will keep for a while, potatoes will keep for a while. There's other things that just have a shelf life of like a day or two, and there's no way around it. So if you need lettuce and you need tomatoes, then you got to pay for them.
Yes. And
they know at every end of the chain, they know supply and demand. They're more in demand. They can raise prices. And it's going to come out somewhere.
Yeah. And I think I don't know if it's truly reflected on the menu yet. I don't know where you've gone out to eat in the last couple of months. Personally, I haven't seen it reflected directly onto the menu. I'm sure that it's getting chopped off some of the profit margin without a doubt behind the scenes.
Right.
I have no doubt that some of it is happening through wages, as you had hinted. I'm just wondering when it's just too much and then it falls onto the menu, and not in small amounts either. I think it's not going to be this incremental 2%, 4%. I think you're going to see these things jump 10, 15, 20%, because I think a lot of places have tried to hold back from doing it.
Why? Because they were in survival mode.
Yes.
I don't know how many years ago was it that you would go into places like Wendy's, and they would, if you wanted tomatoes,
okay.
And it was like a quarter or something like that. But there was a tomato shortage.
Yes.
And so this would have been 15 years ago, I'll bet.
Do you remember when McDonald's used to just throw ketchup packets in your bag?
Yes, by the handful.
You would just open it up and there'd be 10 ketchup packets in your bag.
You had to dig through
to
find your food.
You almost wish you had food with your ketchup packets.
Yes.
And now they don't even do that. Here's some of the numbers. Again, this is all based in the state of PA. According to Business Insider, chain restaurants, price, the number one was Taco Bell, has risen their prices 10%. Second is McDonald's at 8%, and along with them at 8% is Dunkin', Chipotle, and Cheesecake Factory. So those are just examples of franchises that have already risen their prices by 8 to 10%. And again, I think a lot of them, if you go through and look, they've kind of done this incrementally. Right. They kind of didn't wait. And that's why I think you're going to see a lot of people outside of fast food, outside of franchises, I don't think it's going to be incremental. I think they're going to be looking around, and I think they're going to go all of a sudden, like, if we don't raise this 10%, 15, 20%, we are not going to make it.
Well, I think, you're right. Which one gives first? Because you think that they're going to keep raising prices, so people are going to go out to eat less. So there will be fewer restaurants. So then the ones that do survive will still be busy enough because there will still be enough people that go out. And because we keep getting stimulus checks, so they'll have this found money that they'll spend. But as things go up, it can't support everything. But
you brought up,
but then when there's only a couple restaurants and they get expensive and they're always packed, then somebody opens a new restaurant, and that's how it'll just keep flowing.
You bring up I had not thought of it from the aspect of longevity. I had not thought about it from the idea of, are there restaurants around, especially in North Central PA, are there places that they're just saying, we just have to outlast the other place? And I had never thought of it that way. I had only thought of it from like the aspect of, how do we survive? How do we keep it on our books? But are there people looking, saying like, maybe we won't raise the prices, or maybe we won't change the way we do things because we only have to outlast them. We only have to be one of the last ones standing. I had not thought of it from that perspective before. It's a good point.
That's all I make.
Good point. Good points. Let's go to Colin Powell, the first Black Secretary of State, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, died from complications of COVID-19. He was 84 and he passed away this morning. Some of the statements that were made, I gathered these from all different places. We have lost a remarkable and loving husband, father, and grandfather, and a great American. That was the Powell's family statement released on Facebook. George W. Bush and Laura Bush came out and said that they were deeply saddened as well. Bush went on to say he was a great public servant and widely respected. Not like personally, he was just before I became of age where I kind of knew, like, I would see Colin Powell on TV, but I personally I just knew he was important. I was just young enough that I didn't really understand his role or what he played. And to be honest with you, I was just young enough that race was not on my radar yet. Like, I didn't understand the amplifications or the implications of having like a Black Secretary of State. So for me, like, I just saw him as like this very respected figure, and I just knew who he was. So I'm interested to kind of hear yours, and it's been fascinating for me to kind of see other people's takes on Colin Powell this morning as I was reading through it.
Well, when I was growing up, and when he was, kind of in his professional heyday, he is the first one. He is the first Black American that I heard white people saying he could be president someday. Okay. Jesse Jackson tried to get the Democratic nomination in '84, I think, something like that. Okay. But it just wasn't, and I'm sure there might have been other ones before that. He's the first one that I remembered. Yeah. But and Colin Powell never ran. But while he was Secretary of State, he was so well respected that was kind of the sentiment around this guy, that, hey, he could be president if he really tried. Yeah. So, and at Secretary of State at the time, so he was fourth. It's President, Vice President, Speaker of the House, I think, is third. Okay. And Secretary of State, I think, is fourth. Okay. So he was the highest, he was the closest Black person to being president at the time. Obviously, since then, Obama's been president. Sure. But, yeah, he was. And then at the end of the he left Bush's second term, the younger Bush's second term. Uh-huh. He ended up, as time went on, he then endorsed Obama. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if he switched political parties totally, or if he was still a Republican that just endorsed or whatever. But yes, he seemed to be well respected by pretty much everybody.
He was. So unfortunately, like I said, died from complications of COVID-19. Rest in peace. That's all I really have to say.
And they also pointed he was fully vaccinated.
Yes, he was.
And they went into some of the statistics again. As we know, it affects older. Yep. And people who have unhealthiness for a multitude of reasons. Mm-hmm. Young and strong and healthy have a really good shot against it. old and unhealthy are,
Yeah. I was going through it the other day. The immunocompromised statistics are scary. I mean, like, obviously, they're weakened and they're at a higher risk for sure, vaccinated or not. But it was even more so than what I had anticipated before going through it.
I talked to a friend who's asthmatic and was vaccinated and then got COVID and ended up in the hospital. I don't think he was ICU, but it was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the doctor told him if you weren't vaccinated, like the vaccination lessened it enough that it might have saved you. So anyway, be that as it may.
Okay, let's go with, this was a story, a lot of different ways to go with this one. The Joe Biden expressway, they put up the signage for it. We ran this, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? It was not very long ago. The sign, however, within the first couple of weeks that it was up, there was graffiti, spray painted across it. Some of it started with the word F. We'll leave it to your imagination.
Fire truck?
There might have been fire truck. We'll let you guys decide what the F might have stood for. You and I have talked a lot over the last 2 months, and I've probably sounded like a broken record saying to you, like, I just think we're going to learn about a lot of like society and where we're at and what it all means. I don't want.
What have you learned?
I don't want to make a sign seem like a bigger deal. However, this was one of those things. I went 50-50. Like, I went back and forth with this because a part of me, it's just vandalism in general, right? Like, I don't understand it. I'll never understand it.
Because you're not a street artist.
Maybe that's what it is, but I've just never understood that side of it. And listen, like, I'm not somebody, like, don't get me wrong, like, if you watch The Office, the movie, when they like destroy the computer and stuff, like, I joke all the time we should take one of the printers out back and just like go to town on it. Like, I get the break room and like letting frustration out, but I've just never understood like the high or the getting something out of destroying something. The other 50% of me is also like, I wasn't surprised. I know that might be awful to say, but like, I just wasn't surprised that this happened to the signage as quickly as it did. How long did you think it was going to go before something happened?
I'm not surprised either. The thing that continues to surprise me, I was thinking about this after you'd mentioned this as a topic, and I was thinking that you talk about we're going to learn a lot about society. One of the issues is the old people of society are going to have to realize that things are different now. And in all facets, in technology, in the way our kids communicate. And it's, to old people, our kids don't watch TV anymore. They watch it on their computer. They watch it in sports. If you try to coach football the way it was in 1975, you're going to lose because the game has changed. Basketball has changed. But, the world is just different. And we are so polarized now, and the political parties have spent their whole life trying to get reelected and trying to,
right.
And now the aspect, if for them to just stand up and say like, we're right and you're wrong, this is just going to continue. And I've said this before, and I've used this example when Biden sat there during the Super Bowl after a highly contentious election and the attack on the Capitol and all this stuff. And he sits there during the Super Bowl and tries to promote the vaccine, and he sits there with his wife. Well, first ladies have become targets, not real targets, but people hated Hillary. I'm going to say Barbara Bush got a pass.
Sure.
Not Barbara Bush. Barbara was the mom.
Laura
Bush got a pass. But Michelle Obama, and then, Trump's wife, Melania.
Yeah.
And now, so you just can't. Now, Biden's wife has kind of been out of the picture, but he should have brought on a Republican. If he wanted to get a bipartisan message, don't sit there with your wife and pretend that this is family values, because half the country that hates her hates you. The part of the country that hated Trump, if he'd have sat there with Melania, it wouldn't have made it better. The people that hated Obama, if he'd have sat there with Michelle, it wouldn't have made it better. They need to stop. It's not, the old way doesn't work anymore. And you just can't stand up there and preach. You have to get somebody from the other side to come share with your message.
Would you have put the sign up as quickly as they did?
In Scranton?
Yes.
Scranton's thrilled. This is...
And I get that. I get that they're excited, and like rightfully so. As a non-Democrat, I get why, as a member of Scranton, why you should be excited. I have like that part. I totally get. It just comes back like you shouldn't do things just because bad people don't want. Like I'm not saying they shouldn't put up the sign because someone vandalized it.
Right.
However, there is a report out that this is the fastest a presidential sign was put up for a highway ever. Like no one, whether it was Trump or Obama, whoever it was beforehand, nobody had signage or a highway or anything inducted in their name faster than the Joe Biden expressway. And so do you take a step back and do you kind of say like, hey, he has a 4-year tenure. Like this is not the most important thing going on in our city right now. This might be the result of putting this up. And again, I'm not saying you don't do things because there are bad people out there who will vandalize something, but I'm just saying like, do they not just take a step back for a second and going like, maybe this doesn't have to be done in the
It's a good question. And my first question after that is, did they think he's our hometown guy and he's so beloved? Because obviously the people that pushed for this are huge supporters. Mm-hmm. And were they blinded enough to think, well, I know there's a lot of Republicans here and I know the country is at odds, but not here. He's so beloved. Right. Yes, he's our guy. Nobody will do this. Are they shocked? Were there contingencies for this? That's what I want to know, their level of surprise.
So reading through some of the quotes on Penn Live today, I do think they were surprised. And again, I'm speculating, right? Like I'm not inside their head. Like, I don't know. But when you read through some of the quotes, they're like the council president said, this is not the Scranton that I know. We can do better than this. To me, that means there's an element of like surprise, like that there was this idea of like, I thought we were better than this. And it's not so much that Scranton's bad. It's just the polarizing position that we are in as a society right now. I'm not against them putting the signage up. I just wonder if they would have taken a step back and just said, like, do you have to be the fastest people to put up this sign?
The thing that also fascinates me about Scranton and Joe Biden is he moved when he was 9.
Yeah, that part's bizarre.
Like, if he was born and raised through high school,
right,
different story. He was 9.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, hey, look, like, he was born here, but
I said to you before too, like the craziest part for me is I think personally Pennsylvania's infrastructure and like we are one of the oldest. We just struggle. We're just not very as a state. There's a lot of things I love about Pennsylvania. The infrastructure itself drives me insane. We're just not great at maintaining roads. We're just not great at updating stuff. We're not great at renewing things. We're bad at it.
That reminds me, I got to renew my driver's license.
There you go. Anyway, we're just bad at it as a state. And so there was just the whole irony of like whether it was Biden or Trump, any president, pick a president. I don't care what side, what color, like I do not care. There was this sense of me of just like all the things that we can't get done in this state. And yet we were able to put up these signs like that. And it's like, I just don't understand it. I mean, maybe swapping out a sign is simpler than fixing a pothole. Sure.
Right.
But I just, how did that get to the top of the agenda of like what had to be done within the first, 6 months of the so I don't know. There's a lot to it that I don't really understand.
I get it. It's kind of like whether it's a little league team, whatever it is, when they win a championship, there are those couple moms who are like, we need jackets, we need T-shirts, and it's like
you're trying to get us in trouble again, aren't you?
Why?
No, just kidding. Go ahead.
Oh no, okay. Now I didn't know where. Now I'm with you. But it is. It's like the accomplishment wasn't enough. Now we need to do this, and it was great that we won a championship. It'll be even greater that you get a jacket. And then the funny thing about it is like that I've always told the parents, kids wear it for 1 year and then they don't wear it again.
Yeah.
So like, you think this is the greatest thing of all time. And it's just, you know, I don't know. I'm with you. Like, do you need a highway sign?
But see that, and that's where I kind of go back and forth. Cause like I said, half of me is kind of like, it's a sign. Like it doesn't like, half of me is kind of like, it's a sign. Like it's okay. Like move on from it. Like it's a sign. But the other half of me too, like if you're the brain, you know, behind it, or you're part of the city council, or you're somebody who's making these choices, you had to know that the polarization of where we're at, like something like this it certainly was not going to help. And it certainly was not going to be of importance of like it needed to happen now. And I trying to balance those two thoughts in my head is very hard for me.
Well, I think too, on the flip side, and this is why the whole element of surprise is, because I think as a governing body, whoever decided to put this up, you have to fix it. You can't, you can't let the bad guys win.
Yeah.
So if you gotta pay the money, it's coming out of some budget, and you got to clean up. And then if it gets vandalized again, you got to do it again. And you can't.
Well, now it's a target. I mean,
yes.
now, I mean, because I'm pretty sure, according to, I want to say the Citizen's Voice, I want to make sure I give credit to them. I believe it was the Citizen's Voice came out and said they've already had somebody there cleaning it up, taking off the graffiti, as they called it. But to me now, like, this is every person who dislikes Biden with a can of spray paint, who thinks it's worth their time,
or a paintball gun, or
that is
whatever.
the target. Like that is the goal. And again, like, is it awful? Yeah. Like it sucks that people are that upset that they have to go out at a sign and like take it out on it. But like you said, like it is now a symbol. It's a target. It now means something else to people that I don't know if the city council or whoever kind of pushed it thought that might happen.
Well, and we have got to this point in our society where the "not my president" has become this mantra, and it will remain. And there's always been a losing side, but there was never the animosity to the losing side that there is in the modern times.
I mean, as playing Monday morning quarterback, like the fact that we get to sit, like we didn't have to make the choice of whether or not to do this or when to put it up. Playing Monday morning quarterback and sitting here now, I just can't imagine that if you put up the sign in 2024 or 2028, I just don't think it happens. Like I don't. I think the likelihood decreases significantly.
Because as I was just thinking there, I'm doing my 8-second, think tank. It's like like I'm a bull rider. Yeah. My 8 seconds.
Thinking out loud.
I'm still convinced there's no way Biden can run again because he's just too old. So if he does his 4 years and walks away into the limelight, you're right. In 2024 and 2025, there's bigger battles to fight, and it goes up, and there still might be somebody.
You're still going to have the people that are upset.
But I'm just different. But if their plan right now is we'll put it up in 2024, 2025, and he loses, and he runs again and loses, now it's like, well, why would you put it up after he lost? You should have had it up when he was there. Or if you wait till closer to the election, then especially if he's running, the tensions will be high again. So, I mean, maybe there's not a great time until he is out of office, but I agree with you. I'm surprised that if they didn't see any of this coming, then there was an intern sitting in the office going, this isn't going to go well. While all the old fuddy-duddies were like, this is the best idea we've ever had.
I think it also, we had talked about like school boards, and like there are different positions right now that it is kind of like an impossible position. Like it just, and so I do wonder,
like school board.
Yes. Sorry. What did I say?
No, you said school board. I was reiterating. You picked a good one.
I think this is kind of an example. Like this is one of those situations where do you not do something because there are going to be people that do bad things? And that is a hard question to answer, because it is a very American thing that like you do not let the person stop you from doing something just because they're a bad person and they can't handle it or they'll vandalize it. So a part of me sympathizes with what they were trying to accomplish, but the other part of me is yeah.
But we
talk a lot about being on the fence. This is very much a fence one.
And I agree with you because you bring up good points on both sides. There's also aspects of, is it worth, like, do you poke the bear?
Sure.
It's a raw nerve. Is it better to just leave it alone as opposed to, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to make Scranton proud and let everyone know that the president was born here, which is, there are only so many presidents.
Sure.
And even if he was only there till 9, that is a distinction that is whatever. But you've also, by doing this, now you've made the hometown look bad because now they vandalized the president's sign. This
is kind of it. What are your feelings about, because I'm split on this one too. What are your feelings about naming or recognizing things before they're over? Because I always go back and forth in my head about this, because I think it's nice to honor and recognize people while they're there, right? Like, it's nice for them to hear the applause. It is nice for them to get the recognition. But I'm also of the belief of it's not done yet. And so there is this very, we just joked about it the other day. This is a bad analogy, but O.J. Simpson is in the ring of
the Buffalo Ring of Honor.
Yes, and John Gruden was in the Ring of Honor
and he's not anymore. But O.J.'s still there,
right? And so you think there are times where we throw these things up and we honor and respect them, and then how many times do they end up having to come down, or how many times do they not represent what we thought they were going to represent, or half the people disagree with what it represents. And so, I do think this is one of those cases. My thing for 2024 isn't so much just the idea that maybe it wouldn't have gotten vandalized if they would have waited until 24 or 28, whenever Biden's out of office. It's just that idea of I don't know why it had to be recognized now, I guess, would be my point.
Well, yes. And I agree. Everyone knows Jimmy Carter was not a great president. As far as presidents go, Jimmy Carter's been a hell of an ambassador.
Sure.
Because that's what he was put on earth to do. But I don't think there's across the aisle animosity towards Jimmy Carter. Now he's 97 years old now.
Sure.
But it's people. He's a good person. He seems like a good salt of the earth person who's done good ambassador stuff. He's carried the torch well. But at the time, Republicans were like, this guy's not a good president because he struggled. And all this, there's not, I don't think the hatred for Clinton is there on the other side like it used to be. I think the hatred for Hillary is more than it is for Bill. Sure. I think I don't think is.
You and I have talked before about, I think people are much more okay with W now. Now, some of the documentary stuff that just came out after the 9/11 anniversary kind of refueled some of the animosity. But I when you talk to people now about W, it's very different. So to your point, I agree with it. But I guess what I would say is if you would have done something for George W. Bush before he was out of office, the reaction would have been significantly worse than what it would have been if you would have put up a highway signage for Bush after he was out of office. It would have
been significantly heightened. There's no doubt about that.
And so it's a very, very unique situation.
And again, this goes back to one of the other topics. I wonder if it had to do with age.
It might have.
Because if they wanted to do it while he's still alive, he is he 79?
Yeah. He is old. I don't know the exact age.
He's no spring chicken.
He's old.
That's a good point.
So, speaking of, I was trying to think of a good segue there. I couldn't do it. Hooters. Have you heard about the Hooter stuff?
I saw a snippet of it. I saw the headline and a picture, and that's all I needed to know.
Okay. So here's what's up with Hooters.
Do you have pictures of it?
I don't have pictures of it for us on the show.
Why?
So here's what's up with Hooters. They changed the uniform policy. They brought in a new pair of shorts that are almost more. I've seen the shorts. Have you seen the shorts?
I saw a picture.
They're almost
I'm wondering why you're not sharing the picture with us.
Sorry. They're almost there used to be underwear, booty shorts. They're more kind of like the underwear, spandexy, kind of booty shorts than the original.
Leotardish in a way.
Yeah. So they put up new shorts. Some of the Hooters employees went to TikTok and said, this is ridiculous. I'm not wearing these. I might as well go show up to work in my underwear. So there was an ongoing debate. Some of the restaurants themselves, I know, were making calls on this before the actual corporation. So Hooters was telling their employees, like, you can wear the old shorts. We're not, like, who are we?
Because they're
to get
short-staffed anyway.
They're short-staffed as it is. And they're saying, if you want to wear the old shorts, wear the old shorts. So Hooters finally came out and made their statement. Are you ready for their statement before you give your opinion on
I did not know. Yes, I am pumped.
So this is Hooters of America. They appreciate your feedback, both positive and negative, regarding a more accommodating and inclusive image policy on tattoos, jewelry, nails, hairstyles, as well as new uniform options to include new top style shorts and the addition of socks. As we continue to listen and update the image of the Hooters girls, we are clarifying that they have the option to choose from traditional uniforms or the new ones. They can determine which style of shorts best fits their body style or personal image. We're excited to see a national trend towards self-expression and inclusivity that bodes well for our marketplace.
Well, they wrote that well. That was well done.
My favorite thing about the statement is at the beginning of the statement, for a second, I almost wanted to be like, I don't know if they know that this is about shorts.
Well, they tried to.
They do everything
they broadened
they can.
it as far as they could.
They did everything they could at the beginning of that paragraph to make sure that you and I knew that this new uniform policy was not just the new shorts. There was a plethora of things that they had changed,
including
about the
tattoos.
policy, including tattoos, jewelry, like across the board. Now, I will say this. I got to dive into some of the restaurant or the uniform policy changes, and a lot of them are inclusive. There's this like inclusivity with tattoos. There's this idea that like if you have a tattoo on your face, your neck, somewhere else or whatever, you cannot be excluded from the position. So they include that. Jewelry is much more now appropriate as far as piercings, different things. So the uniform policy as a whole actually is more inclusive. There just happened to be this thing with the shorts that kind of went viral on TikTok, and that is kind of what everyone ended up talking about.
How many tattoos do you have?
I have 0.
Why?
So this is the quick 30-second story. I've never been interested in them. I am attracted. Like I do think they are I think a lot of choices that people make with tattoos are very attractive. For me personally, I don't tan. I'm certainly not like a beach body person. So I never saw the tattoo as something that would help me out.
What did your buddy say to you when you were at the wedding or whatever?
We were at the lake house looking not sharp, looking
fit, cut,
looking cut. That was all he said.
All right.
But this was their thing too. As I was going through high school and in the college, I always said, I was like, when I have a reason to get one, I think I will. I always thought a death in the family or someone close to me.
Now you're waiting for marriage.
Something or even I used to joke having a kid. I always thought it would take something significant for me to want to get a tattoo. My grandfather passed and went. The time went by. I had a friend who unfortunately committed suicide that I played basketball with. The time went and passed him by. And it never crossed my mind to get a tattoo. And after those two events kind of happened close to each other, I kind of dawned on me I'll probably never get one. So I'm pro tattoo. I think that for most people they work out very well. You're
pro-choice.
I'm pro tattoo. For me personally though, I've realized I'm never going to have a reason to get one. Those two things would have the light bulb would have went off for me if I wanted to get one, and it didn't.
Okay. Good answer.
Thank you.
There you go.
What about you?
I don't like needles.
Okay. That's right. You don't like shots.
There's something about too, nowadays, almost being not tattooed.
Okay.
Is kind of the outlier. You're almost the rebel if you don't.
So you think I'm almost making a statement by not getting one? Kind of. Huh. I've never thought as me as the statement maker.
It's just, and I'll give you this perfect example. I remember as a kid when I would, going to elementary school in the 70s, there were Erics in each class. There were Jennifers in each. There were, no one had unique names. I remember when a kid moved into town, his name was Carson.
Okay.
And it was the most extravagant name that anyone ever. And And I remember as a kid thinking, like, I'm going to give my kid unique names.
Okay.
And as we get older, my oldest daughter's named London.
Yep.
Because and then by the time we get to our third kid, who's a son, his name is Jimmy. And in modern times, it's incredibly unique.
Okay.
Because back when I was in school, there was a Jim, a James, a Jimmy in every class.
Everyone had shifted by the
now,
time Jimmy
there's
came.
nobody.
Yeah.
So it's just strange that, by being old school now, you can be unique.
It is, I never think of my own name in this way, and maybe you don't either, but it is amazing to me I almost have to reset my thinking. I don't like knowing somebody's name when I first meet them because I don't want any of the association that comes with the name. You don't do that? That's not like a thing for you?
I just suck remembering names. I don't care.
See, for me, it's like I would much rather get to know you and then at the end of the conversation know your name. Because if you...
Well, it doesn't start that way.
No,
you introduce people and you're just like...
But see, this is like if you're at a bar or something, it doesn't always go that way. Like, this is the point I'm making. There are certain people in your life, whether you want to or not, you associate things with their name. So when you hear the name, you associate specific things with them. It happens. You do it and you don't even know it.
Now, I will go back to your last topic. Because when you say, like, you're introduced to someone, you're like, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then I don't care about that because it's a meaningless detail.
So you can
Where are you from? What do you do? Those are all the things. Because I get done with a conversation, I can tell you all this stuff about them.
Right. But you forget
and I have no idea what their name is.
I'm bad at names too, but you don't have the association with names. Like when if someone walks up to you and says, like, hi, my name is X. X has you don't react to X, or you don't react to, like, there's no gut, like, oh, I knew a blank and this is what they liked or this is what they were like. That doesn't happen to you at all.
Maybe I don't think, but I will say to go along with that, I know in talking to teachers when they are pregnant and trying to come up with kids' names, it's impossible. Because they've had all of these.
And they won't pick, like, if Marcus was a jerk in class, they won't pick the name Marcus for their kid.
But if
that's what I'm saying.
If Michael was an angel, they're afraid to name him Michael because they don't want to be like, I named my kid after this kid.
But see, it happens more than you realize, because another perfect example is in dating. If you dated a Kate, you're not going to date another Kate if your relationship with Kate ended poorly. You're not going to do it.
No. See, I disagree with that. I know I have a buddy who dated 3 straight Lindas.
And how that? Yeah, think about that. He dated a 3
because
straight
he could recycle the presents that the named here. Oh, here I have a shirt with your name on it.
That's an awful strategy.
Is it?
It is. It's a bad one. So that's neat.
He did end up marrying the third one.
I'm shocked.
He divorced.
So you think a person's name has no effect over what you think of them?
I'm going to say no.
I think it does, and you don't even realize it.
You may be right.
I think it does.
But I don't. But see, again, I don't, and maybe I'm different because I will tell people when I'm introduced to them, I will tell people that in 10 minutes, I'm going to ask you your name again because I'm not going to remember. Okay. Like that is, but in 10 minutes, I can also tell you what sports they played and what they did, where they went, how many.
I get that aspect of it. I'm blown away at the aspect that you think if I tell you my name is blank, that it has no effect on your previous experiences with people under.
If you told me your name was blank, then I would say your parents didn't really try.
But this is how subconscious it is. Like there's a reason. Like the name, people stop naming their kid Ted for a reason.
Because of Ted Bundy?
Yes. And like people like across the pond, like people stop naming their kid Adolf for a reason.
That's
like,
not subliminal though. That's not.
But the point I'm making though is people didn't want you to have that association with their name.
No, and I get that. I understand.
And so what I'm saying is
nobody's naming their kid OJ anymore.
So yes. So what I'm saying is on a micro level, you do it every time you hear someone's name subconsciously, whether now. What makes people brilliant and the fascinating thing about the way our brain works is usually you can, once you get to know the person, it's gone. Like you block it away. But your initial reaction to names is significantly stronger than you realize.
I disagree. I think you're making this up.
All right.
I mean, I like the theory. I'm sure for some people it's more than others, but I don't think.
Huh. Shocks me. Really shocks me.
It doesn't.
Like, who was your first kiss?
She might not want me to say it.
Okay, but you know the name.
Yeah.
Okay, so the point I'm making though, like when you hear that name though, like nothing sparks, like nothing like. Not because of her, but just the name. Like when you hear that name, you associate it with your first kiss and that feeling and like.
But again, back when I was there, I knew a bunch of people with this name because we don't had 20 names back then, and they were all just recycled. So
do you have like cool story? Like, so this is. I don't think they'll mind if
I have cool stories. No,
you have no cool stories. I don't think they'll mind if I tell this. But my girlfriend's family, Cowboy fans. They named their first kid Landry. And I think that's like so cool for Coach Landry.
I get it.
Obviously
like a girl has to, and I know it's a girl. It couldn't do it for a boy.
Well, no, probably not. But
it works for a girl.
But when you talk about like people wanted unique names and they were looking for, I think that is really cool.
See, and I agree with that. And one of the things that had been tossed around for a kid was Dallas.
Yeah.
But the immediate statement was, if it's a girl, it's going to sound like a stripper.
Because there's an association when you hear the name.
Correct.
So you admit that there's an association when you hear, if someone walks up and says,
well,
hi,
for
my
certain
name is
names,
Dallas,
yes. If someone walks in and says, my name's Adolf, there's an immediate association. If someone walks in and says, my name's Joe, I don't. You're one of 57 Joes that I've met.
You don't assume that their parents just didn't have enough time to come up with a creative name? Like you don't make immediate assumptions about them or the parents?
No, that's why God gave you 40 weeks to come up with names, because some people take all 40 weeks.
Like, for example, if you walk up to me and you say, my daughter's name is London, one of the first things I would say to you is like, oh, are either of you from across the pond? Like, that's one of the first things I would ask. And your answer would be what?
Yes. So
there's an association with the name.
Well, correct. But I thought you meant you're making an association about the kid.
Well, no, but I might. So, for example, because now that, like, when you say the name London, I might apply certain British stereotypes to your kid. Just now, listen, again, the amazing part about the way how our brain works is like we as a society have learned how to just kind of like throw those things off once you get to know the person. But for the majority of us, we have those.
Well, and it is a constant reminder. Her grandmother, her maternal grandmother, she's a quarter. All my kids are a quarter British.
Yeah.
So that's like, so yeah, it's a reminder. But to the other ones, to Jimmy, nobody sees Jimmy and says, oh, he's British.
Like when someone comes up to you and they're like, hi, my name's Jeff. Like you don't immediately have associations.
I think of the little giraffe from Toys R Us.
No, you shouldn't. Actually, did you know he spells his with a G?
I might have.
Yeah. The Toys R Us giraffe is with a G because like giraffe, Jeff.
Oh, G with giraffe. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I did not know that. It's Jeffrey, doesn't it? The Toys R Us goes by Jeffrey, right?
That's a good question. That I don't know.
I thought it was Jeffrey the giraffe.
It might be. Some real quick things. Heather, names totally can cause you to think a certain way about them. Ask anyone that has worked in any education position. The point you brought up about teachers and naming their kids is a good one.
It would be
really
awful.
hard.
It would be awful.
It would be really, really hard. Joe, it is easier to categorize our new friends by their interests and how we relate to those rather than by their names. What Mark is doing is not unusual. I agree with you and Joe because I'm awful at names. You and I have talked about how like we may be the two worst people at remembering people's names.
It is.
We are bad at it.
It is so bad that I will tell the kids, when I would coach and, you get a new Little League team or whatever, and some of the kids from before, but
sure,
you don't want to embarrass a kid because I know this kid and have it like 3 practices in. So I don't know who this kid is. Cause then the kid's like, the coach doesn't even bother to learn who I am.
Sure.
So what I would do at the beginning of every practice is I would get the kids in a circle and I'd be like, I know some of you know each other. I know some of you don't. We're just going to go around and just say your first name. And we would go this way around. And then we would go that way around. And then we would go super fast. And the kids thought I was doing, it was just for me. So I could do it. You're going to think this is, I had to I had to coach I had to substitute coach for an elementary basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like 12 kids there, and I know one of them. So it's really hard to coach a basketball game if you don't know any of the kids' names.
Yeah.
So during the layup line, I went and stood under the hoop, and as the kid went by, I was like, and they had to say their name as they went through.
Yeah.
And by the time layups were over, and then I was like, okay, you're this, you're this, you're this, you're this, you're this. It is really names for me suck.
I cannot wait to read your book on coaching. Jeff, if I die before you, this is cousin Audrey. You better get a tattoo so you remember me. It also better be Harry Potter themed. You know, it's one of the nice things about Halloween is like the Harry Potter revival.
I thought you hated Halloween.
I do hate Halloween. So for me, it's trying to find those silver linings, and one of them is Harry Potter. No? You disagree?
I never read the Harry Potter books. I saw the movies. Unbelievably brilliant, other than the fact that Harry and Hermione did not end up together. How that didn't happen is beyond me.
I have a really funny story about that someday. Today is not the day for it. There is, I think if you didn't read the books, correct? No. I have been told by book readers that if you read the books, it's a no-brainer. It's not, you would never think Hermione and Harry should end up together. If you watch the movies, the visual aspect of it, there's not enough time to build up like the real relationship between Ron and Hermione. I can see why people feel that way if you've only watched the books.
Read the books?
I have not read the books.
Oh, you didn't?
But
okay.
I know avid book lovers. Like I know more about Harry Potter from listening to people talk about Harry Potter that have read the books than actually watching the movies myself.
So the book readers agree. Because I think I've heard J.K. Rowling's said at one point that she wished she would have made it, so they ended up.
I have several book readers tell me that when you read the books, it's not so much what they want. Their point is that it's very obvious why they didn't end up together and why Hermione and Ron did. So it's not so much that like a book reader wouldn't want Harry and Hermione to end up together. It's just like, no, if you read the books, like this is what makes sense.
So you have seen the movies.
Oh yeah, I've seen them.
So in seeing the movies, you understand where I'm coming from.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I don't disagree with the point.
Do you know what the K stands for in J.K. Rowling?
No. Do you? Is that why you're asking?
Well, no, I'm telling the story. I don't know exactly. She has no middle name.
Okay.
But she didn't want to put, I don't know what her real first name is. What's the J? Janice, whatever it is. She didn't want the people to know she was a woman because she thought it would hold less esteem.
Okay.
But she didn't want to be J. Rawlings because she didn't.
Okay.
It was like her grandmother. Her grandmother was Catherine or something like that.
Okay.
So she needed to make up an initial, but that's where she got it from. But she went with the initials because she was a woman and she didn't want to be. She thought there would be. She had less chance of being successful if it was known that she was a female.
William Shakespeare did the same thing.
What?
You didn't know this? William Shakespeare was a woman?
William Shakespeare didn't write anything.
That's what I've heard.
Did you ever see the movie Anonymous?
Yes.
I agree. I agree with everything in Anonymous.
Stephanie says no. I believe she was referring to the signage conversation. No, they need to ask that question on election form if it should be Biden highway. Let the people decide, not just a few people. I don't know
That's not a terrible idea.
I personally think it's a great idea. I just don't know what the legalities of it are. I have no idea. But yeah, I mean, it's the city council. I mean, but I guess that's why you elect who you elect for your city council, in a way, to represent you. It's a fascinating point.
It is. It's not. Yeah, that's not
how
a bad
far
idea.
down should that vote go?
Because they're not. It's not policy. You know,
that's true too.
It's like, should we have orange streetlights for Halloween?
This is the other part of it too, and this gets into an even deeper conversation. But it's a good one for North Central Pennsylvania because you have these small, tighter knit communities that are kind of older than the rest of the country. If you're Scranton, is there somebody in your community who did way more for the Scranton community than Joe Biden? And so if the answer to that is yes, I can see why maybe you would be upset. Like, politics aside, I can see why you would be upset naming it after a president instead of somebody else, or not even getting the chance to vote on it in itself. But I also think there's probably people in that community that are like, it's a sign. I wake up every day, I've got 1,000 problems. the last thing I care about is what the sign is called. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Is there a highway after the office?
There should be.
Because that would be, even people like I've watched a couple episodes. My kids have watched them all.
They're doing now, they have the experiences. Have you seen this? Chicago has one now. I forget where the other one is. But they duplicated the office. And so you go in and it's like the reception area and there's Michael Scott's. So basically it's like a photo thing. It's like it's almost like a wax museum, but it's of the set of the office. Okay. So you can sit at Michael Scott's desk and hold the mug and take a picture for your Instagram. And so you go up, you pay a ticket, and instead of walking through a museum, like you walk through the office.
But it is to go back to the original point, it's, how many presidents have we had and they were born, how many of them were even born in the U.S. because at the beginning they were born in England. So it is kind of,
but the
the president was born here and we can't put up a sign because people are going to vandalize it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and I totally, I think that's why I'm conflicted about it. But there is that idea of like thumbprint. Cause like you even said, it's like he left when he was 9. And it's kind of like, so it's a very fascinating, it'll be interesting to see if this continues. It will be curious to see what the community surrounding Scranton does.
And let me just say, for the 5 listeners who have still hung on, as fascinating as this topic is, we have one for tomorrow that's the most fascinating one we'll ever discuss.
Oh, the one I read to you before we started today? We should just do a video on just that, just completely separate.
Yeah, it's
a pretty crazy
it is
story.
Earth-changing.
Pretty crazy story. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Anything else before we go? We have like 3 minutes. Let me say this to you because I don't want to like deep dive into it. I think the Dallas Cowboys are very good.
We are.
My fear is that you're not going. Are you ready? I'm going to ruin your day today. My fear for you is that you are not going to continue to create turnovers the way you have created them. You right now, at the rate you guys are gaining possessions and creating turnovers, it has to go down. And so I wonder if some of these close games, if your turnover rate is significantly lower as far as creating turnovers, I think you're good. I don't know if you're great. Like, I don't know if you're a top 4 team if you're not creating these turnovers.
Okay.
And math just dictates that you're not. The math would just simply say you are going to come back down to earth.
I will follow it up with this.
Okay.
You told me Oregon was going to run the table and they were going to be in the final. You told me Alabama was going to run the table and they were going to be there. You said, did you say anything about Iowa? I said Iowa was going to dump one of these games before. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying that the Dallas Cowboys will run the table, go undefeated, and win the Super Bowl. And
they can't go undefeated
from here on out. We did beat Tampa if they call offensive pass interference.
No, you didn't.
We did. All they have to do is call offensive pass interference. Because it's a rule.
You're 5-1.
We're 5-1.
Is it fair to say 3 to 4 of those games were coin flip games?
The one against San Diego, we got a couple calls to bail us out.
And your Tampa Bay loss, it's a coin flip game. I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
I would argue.
There's lots. I mean, you look at the Ravens are 5-1.
No,
they should have lost to Kansas City. They should have lost to Detroit, and they should have lost to Indianapolis.
All I'm saying is I think I think your creation of turnovers is going to go down. I think there's a very real world where you're 3-3 right now. And Cowboy fans aren't even having this conversation.
Well, there are. And I've had this discussion with people too about great in the NFL. And I just talked about the Ravens and, the Steelers last night. And you look at the Bengals and the Packers, that they missed 5 field goals in a 10-minute span or whatever. Mm-hmm. There are a good number of games, more games than you would think in the NFL, that with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, they could go either way.
Sure.
Where one big play or one terrible play makes or breaks. But at the end of the season.
But not for great teams.
Yeah, there's.
For great team, like for teams that go like 12-4, 13-3, 14-2, like those teams typically, like their margin of victory is not a coin flip.
Well, I mean, look at the Buccaneers. I'm just saying, who almost lost to the Cowboys week 1, who could have very easily, but they got a call.
You're going to give me all these examples, and that's fine. I'm just saying the stat you gave is correct. Most NFL games come down in the final 5 minutes. I don't disagree, but if you throw 25 teams out and you kept the top 5, that statistic is not real anymore. And we're not arguing
I
if Dallas.
disagree.
We're arguing if Dallas is like a top 5 team, and I'm just saying like it's hard to be a top 5 team when like you're relying on turnovers and
You're
3 or 4 of your
creating
games
turnovers.
you're relying on turnovers.
You're creating, but when you, like I said, you look at Tampa, you look at Baltimore, you look
Mm-hmm.
at Dallas. There's lots of teams. The difference between when it's all said and done, 12-5 and 9-7, 9-8. Now that they're 17, there's field goal kicks that. How many teams teams that walk off after making a 57-yarder?
Listen, you are going to the playoffs.
Because our division is
you're
awful.
a very, very good team. Like, let's not like this isn't me saying like you guys like I'm not being annoying. I'm just saying my fear, like if we're talking about like are you guys going to win a Super Bowl, my fear for you guys is like when you stop creating turnovers, are you one of the best 4 teams? And I just don't know. Like I would be worried.
The way football goes.
Because turnovers are fluky.
They're
so fluky.
There's a lot to it. I mean, certain teams cause them more than others, but when you I think it's third down conversions, and do you hit the receivers that are open? Do you catch balls that are there? And when you get in one game and the ebb and flow of one game, I still say if Green Bay plays a best of 7 against Tampa last year, they win 4 out of 5. They got behind. They kind of couldn't get back.
Who are we talking about?
Green Bay and Tampa in the playoffs.
Why? Why are we talking about Green Bay and Tampa in the playoffs?
Well, I'm just saying in one, because it's a one and done format.
Okay.
You can't really sit here and say, well, this team's going to win and this team is going to win. The Ravens were 14-2 a couple years ago, got in the first round of the playoffs and scored like 9 points. Right.
And I guess what I'm saying, to your point, I would just say I would want to rely on margin of victory, and I wouldn't want turnovers to be like a driving force in my success. When it comes down to a 1-game series, if I need turnovers to gain possessions and my margin of victory is like a coin flip in the last 5 minutes consistently, that doesn't bode well for my 1-game success.
I think just like every other sport, in a 1 game, you just want to be versatile. You want to be able to you don't want to be able to play one way.
Garrison's losing his mind, by the way.
Because if you run into a team that has a really good pass defense, has a really good run defense, then you are or if you have a great weakness, like yesterday, the Chargers, I didn't know this. They're like last in the league against the run, and the Ravens are the best team against the run. So the Ravens just ran it down their throat and beat them by 28.
Right.
So you just want to be versatile so you give yourself a chance. But that's, the NFL playoffs are way flukier than the biggest thing about the NFL playoffs is rest. Sure. And if you get a bye week and then obviously tack on a bye week, you get to play at home. Because climate matters much more in football than most sports.
You guys are really, really, really good.
We don't have a glaring weakness. We are one of the teams that don't have as long as people don't get hurt. But you see with Penn State, one injury can take a team from being a top 4 team to a team that looks like they can't get a first down.
Sure.
So, everyone there's going to be some really good team that loses their quarterback between now and then, and it's all just going to fall apart.
And then the last thing before we go, I am
a Cowboy fan now?
No, not a baseball guy. But I've told you before, like I am an Atlanta Braves fan. Like I can bizarrely tell you way more about the Atlanta Braves than I should be able to as like a non-baseball guy. This has been, as somebody who for like growing up through my teens and through college, and it was just like every year
they were there,
win the division, and every year was just dread. Like you just going into the playoffs, there was just this dread. And listen, we're not there yet. Like it's not, but every year was just dread, and you would watch it, and it was hard to enjoy if you were in Atlanta. I know that sounds very spoiled, but it was hard to enjoy because it was just like, how are we gonna like not do it? This team has been so much fun, and it started when I first came in, and I was like, I love the fact that everyone's talking about the Phillies catching the Mets, and every day the Braves are right there step in step. And I was like, they're going to win the division. And I never thought they would be where they're at right now. And the way they have done it, as a turmoiled Braves fan, this has been unbelievably fun. More fun than winning the World Series.
And what's his name is hurt. Ronald Acuna.
Yeah,
he's been out since June or whenever. And he's probably their best player. So it is it'll be interesting the next couple of days, and And they're the only team I have left to root for. I can't root for the Red Sox. I can't root for Houston, and I can't root for the Dodgers. So it's if the Braves don't make the World Series, it's hard for me to watch.
You don't even know if you can watch it.
It's hard to watch.
Yeah. It is like when you talk to Patriot fans, and like Patriot fans will tell you, like there were years where it wasn't fun being a Patriots fan because like just when are we? If we don't win it all, like there's not a lot of fun. And this has been 20 years as a Braves fan where now like this is enjoyable. Like I actually get to enjoy this, and it's not like we were supposed to win, and how are we going to? This has been fun.
Well, a couple walk-off wins that doesn't hurt either.
It doesn't. Really enjoying this. All right,
there you go. I'm rooting for you. You got a day off. Enjoy your day off.
We're going to. Well earned.
And then you go to Southern California. And
if we you want to go to Atlanta if we make it?
No.
You don't want to go to Atlanta if we make it?
No. Are you going?
Stadium's like 2 years old. Not even.
You driving?
Yeah. I don't fly. Yeah, I'm going to go down to Topsail. I'm going to go to Topsail Island and then, be there for like a day or two and then go see a game.
All right.
I'm dead serious.
You know what a World Series ticket costs?
And? I don't have a mortgage.
I'm just saying. Did I ever tell you my World Series story about a buddy of mine?
Quickly.
Yankees are in the World Series, and these guys are from Pennsylvania, but they're Yankee fans. So they're they're either right out of college or still at the end of college because they have no responsibilities in life. So they're like, let's just go to the Bronx and be in the Bronx
when it happens
while the game's being played.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what game of the World Series was. I'll have to. So he says they cruise in. They're at this gas station. They go to this they just pull in to get gas because they're in no rush.
Right.
Because they're just want to be in town.
Right.
Says this guy, shirt and tie, hood up, grease all over his hands. Something's wrong with his car.
Right.
He says, "Hey, are you guys going to the game?" And they're like, "No." And he goes, "Do you want these tickets?" And he pulls these tickets out. And the World Series tickets, I don't know how they were now. They were big. Okay. They were like memorabilia tickets. I don't even know how. They weren't little ticket stubs. Okay. They were probably like 4x8 or something. Maybe not that big.
Yeah.
But so he pulls these tickets out and says to the kids, do you want these? I'll sell them to you for my car won't ride. I can't go.
Okay.
So whatever face value was at the time, 120, 150 bucks, whatever.
Okay.
And they're like, "Are you serious?" So they buy it.
Okay.
And he says, and my buddy the whole time there, he's like, "These aren't real. We just got had. There's no way. That guy's probably selling more tickets to some other sucker right now."
All right.
So the whole way there, he's just like, "How stupid are we? We just came here to have fun. And now we're out $300 and now it's not going to be any fun."
Right.
But he's like, "Here we are." And I walk up, we pull a ticket, and I go up to the person and I'm ready for him to say, "You morons." They just rip them or they scan them. I don't remember the time. And he's like, we walked in all of a sudden. He's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "We're like fifth row behind the dugout." He goes, "It was the greatest thing ever." But for like 45 minutes on the way in, I was the maddest person in the world because I'd just been had. And I got to sit behind the dugout in the World Series.
That's pretty great.
So he said the poor guy is probably the one that was mad because we're in his seats because his car broke down.
Right.
And so, yeah, not that we ever, take a negative spin on things, but
yeah,
he did. He's like a whole hour. I was the maddest person and we were the dumbest people.
That's pretty great.
It's a good story.
Really good one. All right. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news. Anything? Word of advice before we go for Tuesday?
No.
Okay.
All I got.
Nothing. That was it.
I'm done.
Okay. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Thanks for watching the Midday Show.
Later.